Prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. 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 Prosecute the police. Good evening, good evening, good evening. We want to welcome you to Empowerment Liberation Cathedral's Word Wednesday. Tonight, again, we will continue our justice panel. And tonight, we want to bring a topic that you are all familiar with. We've been talking about voter suppression. First, I want to give you a few moments to invite others to join us, give you a few moments to create a watch party, give you some time to hit like. We want you to make sure that you are sharing this live with all of the people that you know and everyone who you want to get this information on tonight. Once again, welcome to Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. This is our Word Wednesday Justice panel. And I told you we would do these until we were prepared to vote, until November 3rd. And so we are continuing with that. And today is the last justice panel that we will have. No justice, no peace. Prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. We're giving everybody a few moments to share. We ask that you would take a few moments to share on your page to create a watch party. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight. Once again, welcome to Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. This is our Word Wednesday, and we are going to talk about tonight voter suppression. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to talk about voter suppression on tonight. And so want to make sure that you are sharing it, making sure you hit like, and making sure that you create a watch party. Now, when we think about voter suppression, we have to first start at the Voting Rights Act. Some of you know that in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was signed and has been protected. It has protected minority voters at the polls. And so in June 2013, some of you may remember, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down a part of that was Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. And that section, in essence, included the language where it said that the states had to get their new laws approved through the Department of Justice, those states that were known for trying to suppress the vote or had a history of voter discrimination. Any new law that they put on the book, they would have to get that approved through the Department of Justice to show that they did not have any discriminatory purpose for writing these particular laws. So that piece was removed, and that has allowed states now to put laws on their books that will suppress the vote, that will be allow them to discriminate against voters, and that will cause or allow voter intimidation. And so that is what happened in 2013. And so now we see that voting rights are under attack everywhere. There are voter suppression laws that are everywhere, and they are impacting those who are trying to exercise their constitutional right to vote in elections in the United States of America. And so in 2008, states across the country passed measures to make it harder for Americans, particularly Black people, elderly, students, and disabled citizens to exercise their fundamental right to cast their ballot or cast their vote. And so what happens a lot of times when states put different laws in place is they cut the early voting. Anybody live in a state where there's no early voting? That's one of the things that they do. They cut the early voting. They make voter ID laws that are very stringent. And they also purge, oftentimes, they will purge the voter rolls. And so a lot of times you will see that happen with these states that are doing voter suppression. Okay, so tonight we have our ELC leadership panel that is going to come on and talk with us and talk with you about first voter suppression. All right, so we're going to bring our panel on at this time. We're so glad to have with us Deacon Sylvester tonight. We have Deacon Kim tonight. We have Deacon Ronnie, and we have Reverend E. Marcus. And so we're going to talk tonight about voter suppression. As you heard, there are some states that were known for doing things that would suppress the vote or make it where it was difficult for citizens in that area to vote. And so now we have, in some states, I've heard about this, and I want you all guys to share what you've heard from other people in other parts of the country. But in some states, one, namely Alabama, if you are using the absentee ballot, you have to have not one, but two people to witness your ballot. Okay, and so what about those senior citizens who don't have anybody else there who can sign to say that they're a witness for you? Or maybe they just have one person, maybe a spouse or something living with them. And so now they are required to have two in order to submit their absentee ballot. We know in Texas, they have, the governor has said there is one box per county that can collect these ballots that are absentee ballots. So some people are having to drive 30 minutes, 40 minutes because they're in their county and they have to drive to one box. Just imagine if everybody in Montgomery County had one box that they had to go to in this area, or Prince George's County, one box, Baltimore County, one box. And so they have one box that collects all of the ballots from the citizens in that area. They are limiting where you can vote. And like I said, there's no early voting in a lot of southern states. They do not allow early voting for citizens. So, you know, this is voter suppression. So what do y'all feel about, and even the machines? They've had problems with machines. They've cut down the number of locations where you can vote. And so people were accustomed to voting in one place, and now they can no longer go to that place. And so what do you all feel about how some states are pushing voter suppression to try to stop the vote? And tell us some of the things maybe that you've heard about tactics of voter suppression. You all can come off of mute now.
Okay, well, I've been watching the election happen, and it's to me, it's sickening, the voter suppression that I'm seeing going on. And, you know, I just wanted to say, while I had it on the top of my head, I honestly think this is what I think, that this is back in 2018, Stacey Abrams would have won. I think voter suppression did her in. Just my opinion. But anyway, you know, it's sickening what I see, and what you were mentioning, that was one of the things that was on my head, was the one drop box for a massive county, like was like almost a million people in this county or something like that.
Yeah.
One drop box was absolutely ridiculous. And I just don't understand how they can do this and go to sleep at night. I'm not understanding that, you know, just to know that people don't want you in office and you will do anything possible to stay there. I don't know. I just don't get it. You know, you would think that if people didn't want you there, then maybe you should do something different rather than try to suppress the vote of people who have the legal right to vote. I don't get it. but it is sickening. And fortunately, I'm glad that we live in a state where we don't it may be happening someplace, but it's not happening to the extent that it's happening in other places.
Yes, yes, yes. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Somebody
And
else.
sure, go on, Deacon Ronnie.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I agree. I have your same sentiments, Deacon Kim, that it is sickening for the politicians, the crooked politicians, to suppress the vote because they know they're losing. So I don't even think that the head of the Klan, and I don't mean the KKK at this point, but the head of the Klan, um, he doesn't even have that type of thought process or feelings to say that I can't sleep at night because I'm doing X, Y, and Z. He doesn't have those type of fillers, in my opinion. So, and in his little minute mind, I think he thinks that these people just don't like me because of whatever. He doesn't really. He thinks that all these rallies that he's having with all these thousands of people that's coming to these rallies, that super spreaders they call, he thinks they like him. So he doesn't really think that a lot of people dislike him. Or if he thinks they dislike him, it's because he's telling the truth in his mind. He's telling the truth. Or because he says whatever he feels like saying. So, my thought is that he thinks that they just don't agree with him because he's not passive. He's very aggressive. He says what he wants to say. So he thinks in his mind that he's doing a good job. So the point to, you were saying was how do they sleep at night? He sleeps very, very well because he doesn't have those fillers like we have. That's my thought. And the state that you were talking about, they said the voter suppression where they have that one ballot outside of Alabama. There's another state that's doing the same thing, and it's down south. But they said the state is the size of Rhode Island, or the county is the size of Rhode Island. Sorry, somebody was calling me. Sorry, the county was the size of Rhode Island for that one county where there's just one ballot, one box.
Yes.
So it is disheartening. It's like, my thought is, how come it's not illegal? I don't understand that. Why isn't voter suppression illegal? Why doesn't everybody? I know the Republicans see it. I know everybody else sees it. But why doesn't one Republican? And I thought I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name, but I thought at least he would stand up and say something. That one Republican that ran against Obama. Mitt Romney. Yes, thank you. Yes, okay. Thank you. I thought he would at least stand up and say something, but he fell right into the pit of hell that they all have fallen into. So, I just don't get that it's not illegal. And if it is illegal, like, why isn't anybody doing anything about it?
Right. Well, you said a lot. I don't want to tackle that at the moment. I'm gonna
give
Deacon Sylvester.
I got so much built up inside of me. I got so much that I want to talk about. So sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna tackle that, but I want Deacon Sylvester to say what he had to say in Reverend E. Marcus.
Right.
Okay.
So what I was going to say, there are a lot of forms of tactics in terms of suppression, voter suppression. And as Bishop alluded to, it's mostly impacting people of color, students, the elderly, and those that are disabled. And in terms of ID requirements, I read earlier where there are 36 states that require a government ID, and another, 6 to 7, maybe 8 states that require not only just a government ID, but a photo ID. And so if you think in terms of COVID situation, pandemic that we're currently in, a lot of those motor vehicle places that you obtain your ID, they're closed. And so I know a good handful of friends and family members of mine that are still without a legal ID in terms of their current one being expired because they can't go to the thing. So they're waiting for an appointment and that sort of thing. So if that's the case, that you need an official and active ID, you're already cutting into, and I think also it was said that about 21 million people in the United States are without an ID. And so in terms of a tactic,
Wow.
how do you, I mean, those are lost votes if they're not allowed to vote.
Right. You're absolutely right about that. Absolutely. And Stacey Abrams, I think, lost by 66,000. So I believe you are correct when you say voter suppression stopped her from winning that election, because surely 66,000 might not have had IDs if you listen to the number that Deacon Sylvester just gave us. All right. So Reverend E. Marcus, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just want to say this is, voter suppression has been going on forever, when it comes to people of color, non-white folks or non-white males, even back before the suffrage movement in terms of women. So voter suppression isn't new, and there's always going to be some tactics. I just want to respond to the illegality of it that Deacon Ronnie brought up. This is so. If you have police officers that are out on the roads doing illegal things, um, and you're like, how do they get away with this? This is illegal. Well, if there's a police chief, that's allowing these things to happen, there's no price to pay, right? There's no threat of not doing of being careful of not breaking the law when it comes to enforcing the law. And which leads to my point. This is why we have to vote all the way down the ticket.
Absolutely.
We are never going to, there are always going to be attempts to suppress votes, and people will get away with things that are illegal because um, because the systems function that way. And my thing is that, the president voting for a president is not going to stop what happens on your streets. It's just not gonna do it. We have got to understand the importance of voting all the way down the ticket. If there's police action, illegal police action, voter suppression, all these things are going on in your city, and in your state, you have to change the people who hold those offices. Where they for those who are in elected offices, you have to make sure that they are not reelected. For those who are appointed, you have to vote out the people that are you have to vote out the people that are appointing people who allow voter suppression. That means we have to be educated about the entire ballot. We have to know who does what. You know, who does what in your city, from what the governor does to the chief election officials, what the comptroller does, what the chief of police does. We have to know those things, educate ourselves on those things, so that we can vote those people who are sustaining systems like this. We can get those people out of office.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, absolutely right. And so you hit on the point that I was going to hit on, which was you have to vote those people out who are allowing these, because one of the things that I've noticed, I think we talked about this before, it's my opinion and some other folks that there are two systems in America, two legal systems. So you have one for the Black folks and then one for the non-colored people of color. Okay, but then also who's going to hold these people accountable? Like we just heard about the chief of police, who's going to hold him accountable? And so that's why we have to get out and vote, so we can vote out those people who are making the law. I appreciate what they're doing in South Carolina, getting ready to vote Lindsey Graham out. And so we are looking forward to Jamie getting that seat. And I appreciate what they're doing with those other contested seats. I believe in Georgia, we have the NAACP president who's going to get one of those seats. We just claim it. And so you have to get rid of those people who are allowing and supporting and even encouraging voter suppression. And so, of course, they're going to encourage voter suppression. We saw it with Stacey Abrams because the person who was, I believe, over the elections area was one who was up for election. And so why would he not encourage voter suppression? And so that's why that was allowed there. And so everybody couldn't believe it. It was like, okay, can y'all do something really different? But one of the things that I noticed when EJC, Empowerment Justice Center, we were working on doing the flyers for the countries because we wanted people to know when you could vote, when was the deadline for registration for voting, when was early voting starting, and when was early voting ending. So what we noticed, Mr. Cat and I, was that all of these southern states, a lot of them did not have early voting. And it is like a shock to your system because you're like, okay, it's clear the voter suppression line that's in the United States. It was very clear, and it was very troubling to see that they are still doing that to people in the South. And one of the other things that I heard about today for Georgia is that in Georgia, oh no, in Texas, even with the one box in the county, you have to turn it in yourself. So let's say your grandma can't walk up there because she is not able to walk. So my cousin who lives in Texas was saying that you have to turn it in yourself. So I said, well, how they gonna know if you turn it in, And so I was told that I think you have to show some type of ID or something, but you have to turn in your own ballot. So now they've limited you to one box per county. And now you can't bring it in for somebody else, but you have to turn in your own ballot. All right. So now that's voter suppression at its max. That's voter suppression on caffeine, if we can call it that. Okay. So, voter suppression is really, really happening on a major level in this country. And so now when we look at it in Georgia, I'm proud of the folks in Georgia because they are working hard, standing in long lines to make sure that they overturn and remove some of these people from office who have continued to suppress the vote. And I know the American Indians are even experiencing voter suppression. It's my understanding that on some of the reservations, they have removed some of the polling locations. So now the American Indians are experiencing voter suppression as well. Anybody want to comment on that? Anybody read any of those things or heard anything about the American Indians? It's my understanding that they have removed some of those polling places from the reservations that will now force the Indians to have to vote somewhere else. Okay. All right. So it's also.
I do want to say, Bishop, if I may, I also want to say that there are lots of other ways that the votes have been suppressed.
Okay.
We look back at the last election, the last presidential election, and we see the way with Russian interference, the way they targeted, and it was. I think it caught a lot of us by surprise because we were probably thinking, I hate to generalize, it's improper, but we were probably thinking, well, I'm Black. The Russians ain't getting to me. They ain't in my circle of friends, but they very strategically fed information.
Yes.
Some true, some not true, onto Black Twitter, into Black folks' Facebook feeds, that reminded us, of some things that the Clintons did, and so they turned our attitude, they turned our attitude. They suppressed our vote by reminding us and making us upset about the things that happened to people of color, particularly Black men of color, Black men during the Clinton administration. That's another way, being bombarded with information, false information, Even, some information that's true. Some of those things did happen. You know what I mean? The same
Yes.
way they tried
Yeah.
to suppress the vote against Kamala Harris, by
Yeah.
bringing up old track records that,
Right.
things that weren't even true. So that's another way, and we
Yes.
have to be careful because, again, I hate to generalize, but you know, we have a tendency to be reactive, you know, and if something pisses us off, then we react to that, and so now we're not going to vote, and I would rather,
Right.
you got all these folks talking about, I guess they're too holy or too integrous to vote for the lesser of two evils, all that kind of stuff, however
Yeah.
people crotch it, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to say that's another way, and we have to be careful of that. We
Yes.
have to be careful, of the other ways in which particularly through social media, that votes are suppressed.
And you're absolutely right. And before I move on to the next thing, I do want to say that in a lot of the southern states, I understand they're showing some horrible commercials on television and anywhere else they can get them on the radio that talk about Joe being this horrible person, all the horrible things he's done, how he hasn't done anything, and the Trump rhetoric basically, and bringing up Kamala's past and all of that. So those are the things they're rolling down in the southern states. Not that they're not rolling some here, but they're rolling it intensively down in the southern states. Those are typically our red states. And so, that is also, yes, voter suppression. And I do want to bring up how oftentimes there are one or two issues that will separate us. And African Americans historically will allow one issue to divide us and make us go over with the people who have mistreated us, who have discriminated against us, who marginalized us. But we say, oh no, we won't support, let's just say we won't support abortion. They've divided people on that abortion issue for years. And so
Right.
those people who won't support abortion, if that candidate says they support it, even though that candidate is going to destroy you, Black folks will vote for that person or people of color. And so let's talk about that, how strategically the people who are at the top, I don't know who they are, but there's somebody who's running all of this. They select one or two issues that they know are going to divide the African American community and get some of them to move over with the Republican Party or the incumbent. So let's talk about that, because African Americans have historically two issues that will make them just turn the other way. And we know that that's abortion, oftentimes for those who are extremely religious, and it's also gay rights. And so if you say anything about those two, the African Americans are going to run the other way. So let's talk about
Listen,
that, since we have a beautiful African American panel.
it's
Or
interesting that
people
you
of African descent.
Yeah, I'm very glad you
That's
brought that
it.
up because it's so true. Not just, and I don't think just with African Americans, that's true across the board, with
Yes.
Americans across the board, because I know a whole lot of folks, a whole lot of white folks don't agree with everything that Trump has done or everything that he says or the things he say, but they are single issue voters.
Yes.
As long they're going to go with who, just like you said, they're going to go with whoever is against abortion, the
Mhm.
white evangelicals, or whoever is feeding their hatred for people of color.
Yes.
Whoever
Yes.
Now, whoever is not going to make sure that people of color, that programs are put in place, policies are put in place where people of color can benefit from, that's who they're going to go for.
Yes.
They even if it means that rich people get away with humongous tax breaks, even if it means that their taxes will be increased, as long as there are not policies in place that's going to help them Black people.
Yeah.
Now, you live in a trailer, you have 3 teeth in your mouth, right? But you're going to vote for someone I mean, you don't have teeth in your mouth. You're going to vote for someone, who is going to put policies in place that are anti your interest,
Yes.
but you're going to vote with that party because of your single issue, that issue that is important to you. I also understand that there are Black people, upper middle class, wealthy Black people who are going to vote Republican simply because their single issue is the tax break.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have all these celebrities, and things that are coming out, making these statements that seem to be in support of this Republican agenda, and no, I mean, they're not, perhaps not interested in the whole platform,
Yes.
but that single issue
Right.
that they get to keep as much of their money as they can.
Yeah.
Is going to push them to vote Republican.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for highlighting that. Anybody else? Deacon Ronnie, I think you were trying to say something. Deacon Sylvester, Deacon Kim.
Yeah, Bishop. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with Reverend E. Marcus. As far as on, the Christian side, it's talking about abortion and same-sex marriage, and I'm wondering, for example, my mom is against same-sex marriage. Period. At the end, she's against it. And when I was talking to her about voting and so on, and she said that is the least of my concern. So I'm wondering, and there's so many people in the churches that are totally. We can talk about against abortion or against same-sex marriage or whatever the case may be. I'm wondering if they will take that road as well. Like my mom's like, that's the least of my concern right now. We need to get this man out the office, and we,
Right.
worry about that later.
Right.
So I'm wondering if they're going to take that road, or if they're going to hold to their Christianity or their holiness or whatever the case may be, and
Right.
say, oh, I'm totally against abortion. I'm totally against same-sex marriage. I'm totally against all of those things, and say that we're just going to deal with it for 4 more years. So
Well,
I'm just wondering.
yeah, that's a good question, because some people are going to take that road because they feel that that's their duty to stand on their religious beliefs and support that, no matter what happens, how many people it hurts, and no matter if they're impacted some kind of way by the person who gets the office. And so that's unfortunate, but so many people will vote in that way. Deacon Sylvester?
Well, what she just said was kind of scary, but it's true.
Yeah.
And Reverend E. Marcus hit on the fact that, in terms of going back to the tactics for just a moment, is that there are ways out there that the strategists would plant a person of color through commercial, through an ad, or whatever the case may be, a radio announcement, and this single topic or 1 or 2 topics that they know that's going to evoke some emotion between the teams, if you will. That's a strategy. And so what happens, as we said before, is that, those people that have that one single issue or 2 single issues, you don't look at it as the totality of what is the whole picture, what is the greatest gain. Because once again, I use the example on a panel that we had probably a couple of years ago about a cake, baking a cake. And so if that one single issue is salt, or that one single issue is the flour, how do you get the cake so that it's presented to the country, if you will,
Right.
that represents the whole versus that single part? And people have to come out of their single-mindedness, just put it that way,
Right.
and stop focusing on single topics and look at the whole picture,
Yes.
because that's what's
Yeah.
going to move the country forward. And that's for everybody, not just for people of color, but just in general.
And
That's the Christian way.
Better say
Yeah.
it.
Think about what the whole.
You better say
That's
it.
for the whole.
Yes, yes, but that's the problem too. And I guess that's because we don't have really practicing Christians. We got folks who just kind of go. But the problem is that, people today really don't consider others. And what I mean when I say that is, if I vote this way, will it impact uh, my girlfriend down the street, my brother, my cousin? This might not be for me, but is it going to impact somebody that I'm concerned about, somebody that I love, or somebody that I know, somebody I work with, even my neighbor? And so today the thinking is not, let me consider other people. Today the whole point is, oh well, this is what I believe. I can't support that, and I can't go with that, and I'm definitely not going to let others know that I'm voting for that, because then others are going to talk about me because I voted in support of something that's against my belief, or something that's against my religion, or something they told us not to support in the church. Okay. And that's usually where people of color are. So once again, there's no care for those in the community. It's all about, what my one single issue is. And that is so unfortunate. I've had to tell people numerous times, you don't have to believe in it. It don't have to be for you, but at least vote to support those who it is for, and who will be impacted if you don't support this issue. All right, Deacon Kim, did you want to add something?
Well, speaking of just single issues, it doesn't have to do with religion or anything. That I remember a few years ago when Trump was first elected, maybe I think it was halfway through his term. I was watching some documentary, and it was about a lady who lived in rural Kentucky. I think it was rural Kentucky. And you have a lot of coal miners, and and a lot of people voted for Trump just because he said he was going to bring coal back, right? That was it. That was the only reason. Now, a lot of these coal miners are suffering from black lung disease. And because of Obamacare, they are able to get their medicine. They're able to actually afford to live. Okay. Before that, the medicine was out of reach. They couldn't afford it. So, so the lady would ask questions like, well, he wants to get rid of Obamacare. And they would answer, well, I know, but he said he was going to bring back coal, and it was just like that one little thing, they waited so long just to have health care, and they would give up. Some of them don't want to give it up. They were hoping and praying that he couldn't get it rescinded, but they were willing to bank their health on just coal. This is why when Trump came in, he just assaulted solar power. He was putting all these regulations on it because he was trying to seem like he was tough with coal, but he didn't do anything for these people. So I think they lucked up a little bit by not Obamacare still being
Right.
in play. And I think they might wise up a little bit for this next election, because he hasn't done anything for them,
Well, thank you for pointing that out. So hopefully anybody got any family members that's coal miners, you'll get the hint. All right. So we want to talk about voter intimidation, because there's a lot of that going on today. People are being intimidated. I heard today that there were people at the polls with guns. Now, how much more intimidation do people need? We know there are people who were at the polls riding around with Trump hats and Trump flags out the windows, and they got folks walking around, and you have people even in certain communities that are afraid to vote. I heard about certain people at a nursing home, I think it was in Florida, where they were afraid to say that they wanted to support Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because of how they might be treated in this retirement community. I believe that's what it was. And so, you have extreme voter intimidation today, because anytime you're afraid to say, this is my candidate, this is who I'm supporting, then, we are allowing people to get away with this intimidation. And so now to show up at the polls with guns, what y'all think about that?
I'm just gonna sum it up real fast. Bad idea. That's it. Bad idea. Some people, they think that I carry a gun to the poll and I'm going to shoot somebody. Now, I mean, your whole life has changed for what? I mean, just think about the 17-year-old who brought his rifle to a protest. Everything has changed. Just, it's a bad idea all the way around.
Okay.
Promise. Yes, I promise you, white people ain't showing up to the polls up here in Baltimore.
Oh, no, they ain't. No.
I promise you, they are not showing up with guns up here in Baltimore. I understand that is some other people's realities. I promise you, they ain't doing it in Philly.
Oh, no.
I promise you, they ain't doing it in Atlanta. I promise you, they are not showing up. They're not in this city. They're not. I think it's horrible. I also want to just, if I could just for a moment, say to something that Deacon Ronnie just said. The whole thing about, see, I can put up, if what I want is to make abortion illegal, that I can put up with a Trump or an idiot who's a president, because that term is going to expire. As long as that president puts a justice on the Supreme Court that's going to, overturn Roe v. Wade, that's going to make abortion illegal, that's going to make same-gender marriage illegal. I can put up with, if that's what I want, I can put up with an idiot president, because that person will be out of office soon.
Yeah.
But but that person will get a conservative judge on the Supreme Court, and that's what I really want. What I really want, is for someone that's going to get in there and change the law from the Supreme Court, from the position of the Supreme Court. So I think that's the thinking of a lot of people. Anyway, but yeah, so no, they're not, I think it's horrible that these people are showing up with guns and trying to intimidate folks, and I understand that that's working in places around the country where white people for a long time have been able, to get away with that kind of intimidation. It's very interesting to me how there's a difference in thinking, geographically.
Absolutely.
You got folks in the North, and the West Coast, who's going to be like, bring your gun, but you got folks in the South that are going to be intimidated by that.
Yes.
So I think
right.
in places around the country where that kind of intimidation works,
yes,
is where we see that.
Yeah.
Because they're smart. They know where not to show up.
They absolutely do, because we know the caravan ain't showed up in Baltimore. but I do think it's geographical, because as you said, like I said, when we looked at the states that were not allowed to early vote, those states were in the South. And so also when you look at who has one box per county, who has to get 2 signatures, that's in the South. And so a lot of times your people in your North, and like you said, the West Coast or on the East Coast, they're not going to allow those types of things because the mindset is totally different. And it's unfortunate for the people who aren't able to escape the South, or who are not able to move, and for whatever reasons they have to remain there. And so that's why it's so important that the people who have to remain in the South for whatever reason get out and vote these people out of office, vote people into office who are going to change the laws and make sure the laws are working on behalf of the people. And it should be against the law to even bring a firearm to a polling place, because this is run by the county or by the state. And so therefore, if it's anything with government, you should not be allowed to bring your weapon there. But we know that some folks think that they in the wild, wild west and they can bring weapons wherever. But that is simply to intimidate people. And African Americans have been intimidated for many, many years. And so at some point, we've got to rise up like our ancestors did and say we will no longer be intimidated. Deacon Sylvester, did you want to add something?
I was just going to say, we're talking about intimidation, which goes back to suppression. And so first of all, guns at a voting poll, definitely a no, a vote for a no. And in terms of intimidation, what could happen, if you look at the potential of what could happen, a riot could break out. And then what happens then? Nobody's voting. And so if the tactic is to suppress by not allowing people or getting people to change their mind, that's one thing. But if it's that no one's going to be able to vote, we'll look at the percentage of those votes that won't be counted because of the situation. And so if it happens here, then it happens there. You have that constant addition to this, addition to that, which ultimately will subtract from their total overall voting numbers. And so intimidation, suppression, all the same, all not good.
Right. And there is, hold on, Deacon Ronnie, there was an incident. I didn't look up where it was, but there was an incident where somebody set the box that held the ballots and stuff on fire. So that just reminded me when you said that, because now what happens with those ballots? Go ahead, Deacon Ronnie.
I just have a question. So if it's illegal to stand within a certain amount of feet from you voting, right? Yeah. You can't have your Biden signs or your Trump signs with a certain amount of feet. I'm not sure what that space is.
Yeah.
So why isn't it illegal to be able to have your firearms while you're in line to vote or to intimidate people? So, that's kind of bizarre to me.
I think the intimidation is.
That's what, yeah, exactly.
I think the intimidation is, so you have these open carry
I was
states.
just about to say that, yes.
You know what I mean? So it's probably not like they're standing there like they're standing, I don't know, but it's probably not like they're standing there, with guns out. But if you're in an open carry state, you can make it very clear that you're carrying a gun.
Correct, because we've seen some with them, they had them strapped on front of them and they're standing in line ready to vote. That is clearly, and you don't have to stand up there and hold your gun up to me,
right?
Like you're ready to shoot me. If you strapped and I can see it, absolutely, you're going to intimidate me. That is intimidating me. So
Maryland is open carry state. So somebody can have their gun outside of their shirt, their firearm, and let you know that, this is what I got, and it could be a whole line of them together. And so anybody would feel intimidated. You got 3, 4, 5 folks with weapons and, more than likely they got on a MAGA hat or something, so people definitely are experiencing voter intimidation. And then they have where the machines are breaking down in some of the places, or they're telling people machines are down, y'all gotta wait, or y'all gotta go and you can come back, after people have stood in line for all this time.
Right.
Something's wrong with the machine. So, all these type of tactics are in essence just to suppress the vote and make sure that our vote is not counted. And so that's why people have to be prepared for whatever happens, whatever drama takes place, to still stand in line or still wait to have your vote counted. And some people have,
and also,
and they weren't even counting votes anymore. That wasn't even a polling location. Go ahead.
There are cities. I mean, there are cities and counties, and districts where it's always a mess. You know what I mean? It's always a mess. And my thing is, you gotta vote whoever is over this. You gotta vote them if they're not publicly elected, you have to vote who is hiring them, who has enabled them to keep their job for 17 years.
Right.
Correct.
And it's always a mess, so it's not like, we have to stop getting over it once the election cycle is done. We have to remember, last election this was a mess. Election before that it was a mess. The election before that it was a mess. They lost my ballot. They told me I wasn't registered. All that. Then you have to get the person who is running those things out of their positions. Heads have to roll. They have to roll.
Well, let me say, I give kudos once again to Georgia. I'm not thrilled about the Republican governor, but I will say, with the lines being so long and people having to stand in line, this is not even election day now. This is the early voting. People stand in line up to 6 hours. They decided they needed to do something in Georgia. Fulton County, Cobb County, y'all know those counties there right outside of Atlanta, or one even includes Atlanta. The governor had to recruit 10,000 voters to work the polls. He commissioned buses stocked with voting machines, which allowed voters to drive up voting in Fulton County. He opened 680,000 square foot State Farm Arena and put an additional 300 machines out for people to be able to vote. So now most of the people who are voting in this last week, it's taking them about 30 minutes on average to vote. And so that's what you have to do. Don't let the people keep standing in these long lines. You have to be prepared. And I would say kudos to DC, the District of Columbia, and Mayor Muriel Bowser. I love the fact that they have an app where you can check all of the voting locations. And if you know the average time of voters, so if you don't want to go to that location, you can go to another one. And I love the fact that they have open voting location. You can vote anywhere, just like in California. You can go anywhere and vote. You don't have to be restricted to one particular voting poll location. And DC, I also have to give kudos to them for sending ballots to everybody, not allowing Trump to hinder their progress. They decided to every voter receive their ballot by mail. You didn't have to request it. They told you ahead of time it's coming. And every voter received a ballot by mail. So if they wanted to vote by mail, they could. They want to come in, do early voting, they could. Or if they want to go out and vote on election day, they can do that. So, that's what we all need to move to. And we need to have some type of system in America where everybody is doing the same thing. Some states have been voting by mail for years. And then you got some people, they still are suppressed, like those southern states where they don't have early voting for you. They don't make it easy for you to vote. They want everybody to come out on election day and stand in long lines and get discouraged. Okay, so we're going to move to any last comments. We're going to move to our last topic, voter anxiety. Any last comments on suppression and intimidation?
I did want to say, maybe about 2-3 hours ago, the Supreme Court, I think they reversed Michigan. Remember, after Governor Whitmer threat and everything, the state's attorney said no firearms at the polling place, and then now that's been overruled. So now they can bring them to the polls. So.
All right.
Well, Bishop, I have one other thing, and it's kind of like voting suppression.
Yes.
But I was talking to a family member and I said, hey, have you voted yet? I talked to all my family members. Hey, have you voted? Have you voted? Have you voted? And this one particular family member said, what's the point of voting? It doesn't matter anyway, because it's going to do the same thing that happened 4 years ago when Russia took over, and so many people didn't vote for Hillary because of her, issues with Clinton and all that stuff. So I was shocked to hear somebody in my family, as much as they know how much, I'm, for voting and our rights and this, that, and the other. So for one of my family members to ask me what's the purpose and no, they're not voting, I was upset. And I almost couldn't explain to them, I was so upset, why your vote counts. Don't
Yeah.
think about what happened 4 years ago. So I was going on to that trail, and your vote absolutely counts. That's what happened last 4 years, because a lot of people said, what's the point of me voting anyway? Because Hillary is going to win.
Right.
So I'm not sure if other people are still hearing that, but if that's still coming out of individuals' mouths, and I said, you're very ignorant for saying that, so I'm just wondering if people still are thinking that way current day,
Yeah.
outside of my family member.
There's still voter apathy.
And I hope you watching.
Yeah. We still have voter apathy, especially in the African American community. And I've heard that numerous times. With Empowerment Justice Center, we have done voting calls to people all across the country, but especially in those states that are, trying to be flipped. And so there are people who have voter apathy and who just feel like, what's the purpose? What's the point? We don't see the point in voting because, they got all these things in place that's going to stop our vote anyway. And so, you just have to talk to those people, encourage them. But, there are numerous people, not just your family member, numerous people who still have that opinion. It's unfortunate. I don't know what we can do to encourage them, but all we can do is talk to them and move to the next person.
Or just give me your ballot. I'll fill it out and take it and drop it off myself.
Well, in Texas, you can't drop that off now.
Right.
But so voter apathy is real.
Okay.
And then voter anxiety. I want to talk about that before we get off, because so many people have anxiety about what's going to happen at November 3rd or the next day or whenever they make this announcement. Now, we know that they may not make the announcement on that day, because usually what we see is the networks make a projection.
Mhm.
And some states, this is just it amazes me. Some states don't start counting the absentee ballots until that day. Now, if there have been massive numbers of absentee ballots that have been turned in and submitted, I understand the law. Somebody needs to have been working to change some of these laws, because the people need to have been counting some of these votes in advance. And so some states are not allowed to count the votes until that day. So imagine now you got people who are going to be working with the people who are coming in to vote, and then they got to take time out to count this massive number of absentee ballots. And so, we may not know on that day. But anyway, people are having anxiety. Some people are not able to sleep because they're worried about what's going to happen in this country, especially if Trump loses. And, people are concerned. People are worried about will their neighborhood be safe? Will the streets be safe? Will it go back to where people are out in the streets, tearing up buildings like they did during some of the protests? People are wondering about, will their churches, what's going to happen? Because you have some people in the pew who wanted Trump, some people in the pew who wanted Biden. And so what's going to happen? Are we truly going to be a divided country? And then if Trump gets it and Biden doesn't, what's going to happen with all the people who wanted Trump out? And so people have a lot of voter anxiety at this point, because is Trump going to totally destroy the country? We see he's put this person on the Supreme Court. I don't want to give it, I'm not calling that person's name. But, he's added another person who is already prepared to attack the same-sex marriage, already prepared to deal with the Affordable Care Act. I know people like to call it Obamacare, but that's just, to me, once again, those people who want you to not like it because Obama was the person who managed to get it through. But the correct name is the Affordable Care Act. You have those people who are prepared to deal with the Roe versus Wade. And so now they have an agenda. And so now those people who do not want that agenda move forward, are those people going to be out rioting? Are those people going to be out, upset? Are they going to be the ones out with guns? So people just really don't know what's going to happen at November 3rd. And so let's talk about that before we get off. What have you heard people say? What are people's opinions? What are your opinions about you know, the state of the country at November 3rd?
Ooh, well, Bishop, that's a very, very good question. And I never even thought that far past the election day, thinking what's going to happen after the aftermath if your candidate doesn't win. So that's a really good question for me. My anxiety level is already up to here, current day right now. But if he doesn't win the election, I mean, if 45 wins the election, I am afraid. I am afraid of what that side of the world think they're going to be capable of doing to people of color or to people that don't look like them. I am afraid, and that's why I say we have to be prepared. Whatever that means, we have to be prepared.
Right. You're right. Let me hear from somebody else.
So Deacon Ronnie, I feel the same way. I've heard people say, I'm concerned about what will happen. I'm anxious. I'm worried about what will happen, but there's no specifics in terms of what that worry is, what that afraidness is. However, if you look back at our current situation in terms of justice and equality and the things that's been allowed to happen under this presidency, it is scary, to say the least, that if 45 wins, are we opening up the Wild Wild West? And so I personally don't give it much energy in terms of thought, but that's real. But once again, the uncertainty of it, we don't know until it happens. We won't know until it happens.
Right. Thank you.
For me, I think anxiety comes in. First of all, I want it to be November 3rd right now. I've already voted, but it's just because, like, on the 2016 election, I went to bed because, when I went to bed, Hillary was winning. Okay. And then, in the middle of the night, my son woke me up and said, look. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So I'm just like, I just don't want a repeat. I feel quite confident that the country is tired of Trump, but I just want it to be over so I can be sure, because I'm just done with this 4 years. I think there's a new a Trump syndrome or Trump something syndrome, a post-traumatic Trump, I don't know, something like that, that's going, because it's just like with him, it's just something every day, and I can't ride this ride no more. So I just want all of them to be gone. I want November 3rd to be over so I can just relax. Well, I don't know. I think he might do some things after that, but I just want to know that in January we'll have a new president. That's all I want. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's real. Reverend E. Marcus, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable to anticipate a reaction, from a group of folks if Trump loses. I think it'll be contained to particular parts of the country. Like I said before, I promise you that it ain't gonna be rioting up here in Baltimore and in cities like Baltimore. But I am concerned for people who are in other parts of the country where there
Yes.
might be eruptions and things like that. I think that we have to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
And at the risk of sounding, less sanctified than I am, and I am, we might have to start thinking of some things, in terms of how do we up here in the North protect our family down in the South. You know,
Yeah.
how do
Well,
we,
I'm on that page, Reverend. I'm already there, but go ahead.
yes, indeed. Yeah. How do
Absolutely.
we, you know what I'm saying? How do we, those of us who are free, and who ain't scared,
Right.
you
Absolutely.
know, what, to what extent are we willing, to help folks should something break out, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's so much anxiety, not just about, that's centered around the election, but for the whole state that we're in, with this pandemic, with what's going on politically. It's just every day, it's like folks are just trying to find some kind of way to get through this with, a little piece of it, like our grandmother used to say, the piece of their right mind. You know what I
Abs-
mean? Just a
Right.
sense of peace, so yeah, there is a lot. But I don't think the stress that we are under and the anxiety that we feel is going to end after this election, because there's too many other things happening with this pandemic. We've passed that 6 month wall where
Yeah.
depression,
Yeah.
and other mental issues have taken root. you
Yeah.
know and we focus a lot on 2020, as if all we need to do is make it to watch meeting service on December 31st. And as soon as 2021 comes, as long as I'm in service shouting and praising God, then 2021 is going to be a whole different thing. I think we're going to see how God doesn't move in time like we measure time.
That's right.
And these issues that we're going through and expressing, the election is just one of them. It's just one part of it. But this thing is not confined to a year. You know what I mean? It's not confined. It's not going to switch over on December 31st. I think we have got to figure out how to manage our anxiety, because there are things that are going to be with us for a while.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I do think that um, we're going to be in a mental state. Um, and I said this, just from the COVID, just from the staying in, just from not having the connections and the physical connections and experiences that we're accustomed to having, just from not being able to gather, and now they're getting ready to shut back down so many of the places because of the high numbers of COVID again. And so, just when we thought, oh, stuff is opening back up, we're going to be free in a little bit. Oh, we're going to be free. The holidays are coming. No, it's going to be a shutdown again. And so I think, we have, yes, like you said, Revenue Marcus, a lot of anxiety. But I do think that there is going to be a lot of anxiety on behalf of both sides of people who are voting for Biden and for Trump, because God forbid, if this man stays in office, the only saving grace I believe that we will have is that the Democrats will probably have the House and the Senate, and they will be able to do some alternative things and kind of shut Trump down like they shut Obama down. I think a part of his term. And so, it was a part of Obama's term where he couldn't do anything because it was a Republican House, a Republican Senate.
And it,
And so they didn't allow him to do anything. And so the wonderful thing will be if the Democrats are in charge, they will be able to do some of the things we've heard about, which is possibly add other justices to the Supreme Court, and change maybe and make it a term for the Supreme Court justices, and do some of the things that have needed to be done in this country, and even possibly remove somebody because of their conduct. And so, there are things that hopefully they will be able to do if they can come together as a body. But, I personally feel like I need the votes to come in so heavily on November 3rd. And I said this in the prayer last night, that we ain't even got to wait for them to count the absentee ballots. God is just gonna move. And all of the numbers will come in so high that, when they show the percentage of the precincts, it will be for Joe Biden. And everybody will know that Trump is on his way out. Now, yes, I believe Trump is going to put on a major show before he leaves office. And I believe he's going to do a whole lot of stuff. And I believe he's not going to go willingly, because he's been planting seeds, if you've noticed,
That's
that
right.
for his people that say if he doesn't win, then that means that there's some fraud and that somebody interfered. And so I think it's beneficial for us to pay attention and stay woke, as they call it, to make sure that we're looking at how he is planting seeds in his people to be able to contest the results of the election if they're not in his favor. And so, we just need to know, even though we want it to be over on November 3rd, but I think he's planted the seeds that will, for him and his followers, to be able to get ready to gear up for something else. And so, we just need to be ready. But I just hope, and I prayed, and I'm still praying. And if I wasn't so accustomed to eating all my snacks, I would probably be fasting this week. But and so, but I might have to fast on Friday and Saturday now. Y'all good coaches know I need to fast here. But
Bishop,
I would.
Bishop, I just want to say, I think, but I agree with you, but I agree with you, but I also think that we're gonna have an Elisha moment,
I love it.
where our eyes will be open and we'll look up on the mountaintop and we'll see that there are more that are with us.
Yes, than against us.
Than this army that's standing in front of us.
Yes.
Now, I know it's not Sunday, but I felt very churchy.
Come on through.
I trust God.
Yes. Yes.
I believe that there's, I'm not asking anybody else to believe this, but I believe that there is something that we have to experience as a nation. I believe there's a lot of things we have to pay for, and it's going to rain on the just as well as the unjust.
Yeah.
But we haven't really suffered yet. We've been inconvenienced as a nation. We've been inconvenienced.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The suffering has been by the folks who have lost loved ones.
Yeah.
Who have not been able to bury them.
Yeah.
Who have, but as a nation, we've been inconvenienced. So I do think that there is some more that we're going to have to go through, but I do believe ultimately believers will be able to look up.
Oh, wow.
Wow,
that was a good
message.
That was a good word.
That was a good word.
Yes, that was awesome.
Oh, my Lord, my Lord. All right, y'all know the devil don't want you to hear a word from the Lord.
That's right.
But we just thank God that, there are more for us than against us. And that's why I believe that on Tuesday, God's going to show God's hand.
Yes.
And that's what I've been praying for. And, people have to adjust and people have to accept it. Just like the people that didn't want Trump, we had to adjust. We had to accept it.
That's right.
And, learn to live with it. And so I believe that that's going to have to happen with some of the people. Okay, let's see if we can get the prophet back on here. I told him that was the devil. That was the devil that took you out. Come on, Reverend.
I was just saying that I believe that we're gonna. Can you hear me?
Turn your camera.
Yes.
I just believe that we're going to have one of those moments, where God is going to show us, that there are more who are with us than who are against us. There will be a clear manifestation, that God has sent help to those who are on the side of right.
Wow.
Believe in my spirit. Otherwise, because God can't, God wouldn't dare just leave us to this. It would be completely out of God's nature, to just leave us to this. And I'm not saying, I don't know about timing. I do believe there's some of this we have to go through as a nation. We have to go through together. But ultimately, I believe, that God is going to show up.
Amen. I received
Or,
that.
or
Amen.
show up in a different way. God is already here and with
Right.
us, but you understand what I mean.
Yes,
I
Absolutely.
received that.
absolutely. Well, thank you all so much. We have had a powerful discussion on tonight. As you all have heard, there is a lot going on in our country. There's a lot happening all over the country, and we want you to make sure that you stay encouraged. We want you to stay encouraged. We want you to make sure you get out and vote. We want you to encourage others to vote with you. And please remember to vote out those people who have supported voter suppression, who have supported voter intimidation, and who are making laws that are not in the best interest of the people. So we will see you after November 3rd, after the election. So don't forget to pray, don't forget to praise, and don't forget to go to the poll on November 3rd. Thank you so much. This is Empowerment Liberation Cathedral, our Word Wednesday, and we are signing off now. Thank you so much to our panel, Deacon Sylvester, Deacon Ronnie, Deacon Kim,